Welcome back, nobodies, to the second part of the career of Dr. Nobody. In our previous episode, I talked to you about my experiences leading to my PhD endeavors, and that's where I left you off. So let's continue. I was talking about taking the best opportunities you can get. I mean, I went through a lot and I could have definitely just let that own me. That's a reoccurring theme that I'm going to talk about and say many times. But let's talk about one right now. I was offered the ability to start 3 months sooner than any other student at Rutgers. And I have already an episode that's going to talk about that. So I'm not going to go too much in detail about it. So, not to spoil it too much. But the point is, when you do a graduate experience, you have to do rotations. And those rotations, you have to go into different labs, experience it, do the work, and then decide after you do those three rotations, which usually last about 3 months. So if you which PhD program you want to do. So if you start your rotation sooner, meaning instead of starting them in August, you start them in May or June, you're giving yourself a head start on your PhD and essentially finishing sooner theoretically. Okay. It's not a PhD doesn't necessarily have a timeline. But you're doing these rotations and you have to decide because you're gonna spend at least 4 years in that lab, 4 to 5 years or more in that lab. When I was looking for a PI or what we call primary investigator, I chose a lab that I felt I had the most experience for. So the first lab I rotated in, which I didn't know at the time, uh, I eventually formed such strong, amazing friendships, and I still have an amazing mentor and friend out of that lab. That PI was so great to me, was kind. It was such a breath of fresh air to have such a good boss and mentor. He really was down to earth, very like-minded, and just knew what needed to be done. And also the post grad student that was working with me, um, he was amazing too, and really, I mean, he was tough, but he really taught me the ropes really fast, and was really there to support me. And the rest of the lab members were, we all just became really good friends. So I became pretty quickly acclimated into the lab. And you know why it was such a great experience? Because everyone was a nerd. Yes, that lab was full on nerd, geek, whatever you want to say. The whole lab, everybody. And that was awesome. We loved games, we loved anime, we loved paintballing. I mean, we went paintballing a lot. We shared a lot of interests. So that was great. That was a really great rotation. I was so happy going into my second rotation. I was like, man, this is great. This experience is going to be great. So it went smoothly. And eventually, August came. I started with the other PhD students and we started classes. I started doing my second rotation. And it was very out of my comfort zone. Remember when I told you how got the advice of doing different types of themes within my discipline, like biology, chemistry? So I wanted to do a different experience in terms of research. So I've always done molecular research, so in tubes and in vials, whatever. But this lab was a mouse lab. So I got to work with them and learn from them. But unfortunately, both the advisor that I was working with and the PI were not accommodating to newbies. And it was a really rough 3 months. And I'm surprised I made it through. We get graded based on how our rotations did, but I barely scraped out with a B. I mean, it was just so tough. I just didn't. It was so out of my comfort zone. I didn't understand that language of that science. So, and I just didn't have the time to learn it because I was still taking extremely hard classes. By far the hardest classes I've ever taken in my life. So I was trying to find an excuse to leave early, and I started looking around, and I found a lab that was really, really interesting. Something I never heard of, 100%. Nor did almost anyone I ever worked with. Even to this day, when I tell people about what I did, they have no idea it exists. It was really cool. And I was like, that's what motivated me. I want to be part of that. I want to be part of something new. Um, I'm going to have an episode of just what I did on my PhD because I have gotten feedback that people would be interested in that. So I will do one. But What I did was I was studying what's called predatory bacteria, which are bacteria that hunt and kill other bacteria, but they don't hunt us. So they don't kill our body cells. They're totally harmless. The goal was to find new ways to treat multi-drug resistant infections. But we'll talk more about that in another episode. So I met the PI there. He was a very interesting man, kind of reserved, firm, but his true colors did not show till later. And eventually, after several meetings, I convinced him to take me on with a chance of a permanent opportunity. So he agreed to let me do a rotation. He had never taken a PhD student because to him we're very expensive, and we didn't have much time because we were in classes. But I was finishing up my classes at that time, so it was getting better. A lot of these stories that I'm telling you, I'm going to blow out more and talk about more, but I will make an episode about this. Once I got to know him, I learned more about him and he learned more about me, and I realized I might have made a mistake. Now, I didn't choose my first lab, the lab that I felt super comfortable with everybody, because it was something I had already done so many times before, and it wasn't my passion at the time. And the topic that I would work on, it's so hard to do a fast PhD, or just hard to accomplish it in a reasonable time because of what it is. I didn't want to put myself in that danger. But bacteria, because they grow so fast, it's easier to work with them, and I could do a faster PhD. It's fine. Now, for PhD students who leave a lab after a while, you essentially reset your graduating time down to zero. Meaning, if I worked for 2 years with someone and I decided I didn't like the project and I left, I would have to go to another lab and start from scratch, which is zero. You don't get to carry over your time, because the whole experience point is to publish something that nobody has done before. So it crossed my mind to do that. I had spoken to a couple people about it, so my options were never to leave. I couldn't have that option for me. Eventually, when I realized the type of person he was, which is after essentially 2 years, I dealt with it, and it was hard. I have to say, it was a hard 4.5, 5 years experience with that person. My PI was extremely rude. He talked behind my back. He challenged me constantly, and not in a way where it's like, wow, your boss challenged you. That's good. He made you become better. No, he would challenge me in a way to degrade me in front of other people. He disrespected my faith and my beliefs. He embarrassed me any chance he could, not like in a joking way, but more of like, a bullying way, which obviously I was very sensitive to. So I knew what it was like. Um, and no matter what I did, no matter how hard I worked, it was never good enough for him. Never. Just, I couldn't do it. The people I worked with, though, I loved a lot. But that's what really helped me keep going in that lab. It's the people I work with. Yes, there was a boatload of drama. I mean, there was so much drama, but we loved each other. We supported each other, especially them to me. They all knew what I was going through. I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to vent to them. They knew the stuff that I was experiencing with this person. Let me give you an example how they saw how I was being treated, and they defended me. We had to move from one lab to another, because he had a lot of money and they were renovating, and so he got a bigger lab, and so we had to move. But I was kind of sick that day. I wasn't feeling well, and I couldn't work as hard. So then, um, he came up to me and just yelled at me. He was just like, "Why aren't you doing more work? You're being lazy. That's not fair. Everybody's working hard. Nobody should enjoy someone getting in their face like that." And it made me very upset. But then the person who helped run the lab got in between us and was, broke us up. I mean, obviously, I was just totally shocked at the whole situation. He, said his words, walked away, went back to his office. She came up to me and was just like, "Go home, get rest. I'll take care of him." That's what someone had to do with a grown man who runs a lab at a university. Had to go calm him down because I didn't work hard enough because I was sick. It wasn't fair. And the next day, it like nothing ever happened. Just blew it off. Whatever. Never apologized to it either. Never did for anything. That was the many instances of abuse. I had a notebook, and I'm sure now that I'm thinking about it, I'm sure if I looked in my backpack, I'd probably pull it out and just read out all the things that he did to me when I started recording it, because that's later on I picked up on it. Um, but a lot of other professors saw this and understood it. Administrators saw it. Um, he was just a rude person. Yes, he was a really good PI. He got the money. He got things done. He had collaborators all around the world, so he was a good person in terms of worker. But in terms of personality, no one ever prepared him to train another PhD like me. So I took the punches for years. I was bullied all of my life. Here's one of the instances that something prepared me for something. Bullying prepared me to deal with this man for 4.5 years. I told you, he was my final boss. I did complain several times to a lot of high level people, but no one did anything. This is a university. It's so hard to take down. Not that I wanted to take him down, but I wanted him to get in trouble and understand that what he was doing to me was wrong. But it's just so hard to get people in trouble, especially tenured professors, because they're so protected. He brought in a lot of money. He was really well funded and respected. So essentially, in my opinion, he was protected. It was fine. I was meticulous though. Once I started realizing what the heck was going on with this and with my life and what he was trying to do to me, I was like, I needed to plan out my next couple years and set it up. What he wanted to do was just keep me longer and longer, and those were not what plans that we had agreed to when I first started. It was all ad hoc, meaning he just wanted to plan it as we kept going, and that was not working for me. I eventually started recruiting other professors. So you have committee members that are there to support you and help you and mentor you and prepare you to do your final thesis defense. They're also there to protect you from your PI, because there are some instances that they're there for that. I knew I had to get committee members, so I went out and I recruited the best committee members that I knew would be on my side and understood the type of prick I was dealing with. A lot of them gave me really great advice, just told me to deal with it. It's okay. They're there to support me. During our committee meetings, they would always, obviously, he would not act the way he was with me when they were around. He was like joking, happy, teasing. I'm like, this is such a fake person. I could not believe it. After we closed the doors, it was just him and I. He would just go back to the way he was. They knew that though, because he would do that to other people. So they understood that. So, but they supported me. They prepared me. They really supported everything that I needed to do. They also helped me accelerate my timeline and told me how to do it. So I had a lot of people on my side, minus one person, but that's because we purposefully left him out of the loop, because if he voted yes, he was such a powerful figure at the university that anything he said goes. So it was great. One thing I definitely learned was that the aggression route with this type of person, or any type of person really, would have probably ruined me and delayed me even more. And I probably ended up resetting my PhD. He could have probably just kicked me out and ruined me, but he never did. He never kicked me out, so that was good. That's probably the nicest thing he had ever done for me, besides buy me ice cream one day because I produced good data. And so ever since he had done that, I'm saying it in such a way because it was so condescending, like, let's get ice cream. You did a great job today. I'm like, what am I for? That's so what I ended up doing was every time I produced good data that I thought was good, I would have him go take me for ice cream with everyone else in the lab. So that was like 5 other people. So I made him buy us like $50 worth of ice cream every time. Yes, it was Burger King ice cream, whatever, but it was ice cream. It didn't matter. Oreo floats or milkshakes were really, really good. Oh, and the Fruity Pebbles. So my issue, which I have to explain a little bit for you all to understand, is that for PhD students looking to graduate and do something beyond the lab, you have to publish. You have to publish in a scientific journal to show that you are the only one who did it, or you're the one you've advanced science, essentially, in scientific journals or any other type to show that you're a leader, you're a contributor. That's what you need to do. One thing that PIs do for their PhD students is that they help each other do that and like do something so that they would be put on a publication so that even if their name is not first, their name is somewhere on there to give them some reputation, build them up so that when they do get out there, they have a better chance of jobs, recognition, blah, blah, blah. He never did that for me, not once. Actually, quite the opposite. This is how much he despised me. Anyone who touched my projects, even if they poured just water in a tube for me, was on my publications. I was like, are you serious? Sometimes I would delete people off the papers because I'm like, this person did 1 hour of work and that was just moving tubes from the refrigerator to the incubator or something like that. He would put them right back on. The lead tech, so the person who ran the lab, who trained people and then took her maternity leave, it was a long break, was on every single paper that pumped out of that lab. And it didn't matter what she did. She was just always on that. He loved this person, like to oblivion, like anything. And it sucked. I was happy for her, but I'm like, what about my career? She doesn't even know what she wanted to do as a career, but he was setting her up for whatever she decided to do. And spoiler alert, I actually ended up setting her up for her career through my contacts, not even him. He didn't do anything for her. Yes, actually, sorry. He did because he put her on every publication. Sorry, I know I'm venting. I will calm down, but it was just really upsetting because I could have had so many more papers because all the work I did for that lab was just not fair. And she was also applying to jobs behind his back while he was doing this. So blew my mind. Everyone that came through that lab reaped the rewards except for me. Go ahead. I don't want to put him on blast, but if you looked up the papers, you would see that all those people are on his publications except for me. You will never see me in any of those papers. You'll see my 2 papers and that's it. That's how badly I had it. And that's a different kind of abuse. Yeah, probably most people listening to this podcast are probably like, that doesn't really mean anything to me. It means a lot to everyone else who does understand that's a different kind of abuse and it's not fair. You really hinder someone's future on that. He didn't do anything for my future. He didn't even mentor me. He didn't prepare me for anything. Everyone else around him mentored me more than him combined ever did, if that makes any sense. I had his friend that was right next to him mentor me and set me up with a job interview and gave me plenty of advice. He was just really supportive for me and what I wanted to do. I couldn't depend on him for anything at all. What I was doing my last year leading to my PhD is taking advantage of another program that Rutgers offered, which was called iJobs. And I'm hoping for season 2 that I have someone come on the podcast about it and talk about it. This is a really good program. But this is another program that wholeheartedly set me up on my final part of my career. And I'm always talking about programs here, and it's because they're so important. And I do talk about it in an episode. I have someone who comes on and talks about programs, but trust me, if you have an opportunity to join a program, do it. They're really good. iJobs was a new program at Rutgers that essentially helped PhDs find alternatives to being a professor. So literally any job you can be except a professor. Because of my PI, I did not want to be a professor. I mean, I knew I didn't want to, but I really didn't want to after I worked with him. He just made it seem so terrible. What I got out of that program was a lot. I mean, a lot. I did multiple internships, many trips to different companies, conferences, sat through a bunch of speakers and presentations, got certifications, and I did a paid internship at a medical communications company that, when I think about it, started me on the career trajectory that would put me where I am right now. I gained a ton of experience for the whole year that I worked there. It was very unique way I joined. I was at one of these iJob speaker programs. I actually didn't want to go because it was in Piscataway, so which was about an hour or so from my house during rush hour. I was like, all right, I'll just do it. It sounded interesting, and anything with medical in its name, I obviously did. And So these people came and talked about their company, talked about what they do, things like that. Some of them are pretty cool, like this one. This one did an actually hands-on little thing, and so it was an exercise, and I took it pretty seriously, and I finished it in like 5-10 minutes, and they gave us 20 minutes or so, something like that. And she came over and looked at my work and was just like floored. She's just, I just remember seeing her face and how excited she was. And she was like, give me your email and your number. And then you could tell everybody around me was like squirming, like, why is he get like an interview, whatever. And then she felt bad. And so later she was like, anybody who wants an opportunity, just send me an email. Put your email in this paper. So everybody did. But obviously she reached out to me. And I think one other person, and I got the job. I was just so excited. I was like, cool, this is a great experience. And it didn't affect my PhD at all. I could do it at night. I could do it on the weekends. I got to travel. I got to deal with clients and different science projects. It was tedious. I have to say, it was very, very hard work. It was very stressful at times, but I did it. I was really happy. It set me up, and it set me up for all the other jobs and internships that I started working on. Also, to this day, that person's still a friend of mine, and very supportive of my career path. Then I did an internship at a major pharmaceutical company that helped me understand what medical affairs was. I also got to work in a lot of different departments, and they gave me opportunities that I've never seen before. Cross-functional opportunity to work as a medical person and as a techie person. I'm a full-fledged medical person, but I also am definitely technologically savvy. I know a ton about computers. I know coding. You name it. It's just ingrained in me, technology and just how technology advances. I hate NFTs. That's my caveat. I think it's stupid, but I like crypto. So that's out there. Hopefully people don't stop listening to me because of that, but it is what it is. Anyway, I got the experience. I did these internships. I got a lot of strong recommendation letters from all these people I worked with. They ended up providing me with a lot of hookups, and it was just really appreciated. And I felt loved. I felt appreciated and loved from these people instead of my own boss, who I did way more work for. So it was such a good relief to get these opportunities and just feel the appreciation. It just, that's it. Like sometimes you just need to feel appreciated. That's it. One thing that PhDs have to do is write their thesis. And what I was doing was writing my thesis a year before I actually had to do it. And that's how proactive I am. You should always be proactive in your career. 100%. If you have the opportunity to do it, just always keep working, keep doing something on your side time. Don't burn yourself out, obviously, but if you have some spare time, just do it. And that's what I was doing when I would travel, or I had breaks, or my wife went to bed early. Like I would write my thesis, or I work on something. So eventually it came down to my final presentation, which, I'll definitely go over, but I talked to you about it in my previous episode that I had been preparing with my first lab, and it was that lab that was very nerdy and geeky, and they supported me and helped me because I definitely did not get help from my professor to prepare for the most important thing a PhD person does in their career is present their thesis. Because if you do this presentation and you fail, you are delayed. Rutgers it gives you a lot of chances, but it doesn't bode well to fail your thesis defense. So they really helped me prep for my presentation. I had started prepping with my committee members, all of them, but like I said, but one. They were all ready. They had seen the information. They knew what to do. I honestly, and being transparent here, all I asked from them was be honest. Don't let him sway you. Don't let him, the way his comments are, the way he talks, or whatever, just differentiate you away from me. I wanted them to focus on my science, not the person that was presenting it, because I could present in 100 different ways, but the science is what talks and helps me graduate. So in preparation for all this, I had spoken to my PI many times about what day I can end my PhD, where I can defend. I had to make a concession, so we ended up doing it in July 31st. It was, I have to say, one of probably the best presentation I ever done in my life. It was such a great day. My family, my friends were all there, and I knew it was all over. My wife and I were very happy. It was just done. I didn't have to worry about the stresses of being with that man anymore. I could move on, except for the following day that my mother passed away. And then everything changed. My whole life, my career, everything changed. So during the final months of my PhD, I had been applying for jobs, and I probably applied to about 20 jobs. I got 5 interviews, and I earned all 5 offerings from them. It was way overwhelming, and I could not believe it. It was such a blessing. I was really happy about it. And each of these jobs were different fields, and my wife and I had to sit down and think about it because one was in Princeton, one was in Pennsylvania, one was in New York. Like, it was just a lot of different places that we could do. And obviously we had to move. And this is before I knew, before everything, not that I knew, but before my mom passed away. And to be honest, if it was just my wife and I and nothing had happened with my siblings, I probably would have taken a different route. Things would have changed. I probably would have left the job that I ended up starting initially and changed course. But it really helped that it was a really good job. You definitely will hear from people that I work with then. But I had 2 extra kids, and then I had my son who was coming in a couple months. So I chose the job I did as an associate medical director, and it was a good choice. It set me up for my career. It was a well-paying job, and I really got a lot out of it. And it still is fun. Not that it's not fun. I mean, I've been promoted since then, so it's just different. My circumstances, I made what I could out of it and chose based on that. Currently speaking, though, my first job was medical advertising as an associate medical director, and I had no idea what I was doing. And we're going to talk about that aspect of things called imposter syndrome. But to be truthfully honest, I applied to the job thinking it was something else. And yes, the interview was clear, but when I got to the job and saw what I had to do, I had no idea what I was doing. It was my partner at my job who taught me everything I needed to know to really understand. So her hand holding for the first year of my career really prepared me. Yes, also my advisor, my mentor that was there at the time and works with me currently, also was really, really kind and supportive to prepare me really well. So it's also people in your lives that really can help you change your path and support you, because that's really important. You can't do things by yourself. I'm one to testify on that. You need that mentorship and that support from others, because people know more than you. You know, it's face that fact. They do. And these people definitely knew more than me and supported me. Eventually, I put everything I had learned all the way from high school to my final months of PhD and even my internships at this job. I really did. My first project was it was a PowerPoint project, and I have to say I'm really good at PowerPoint. I'm not a super PowerPoint specialist. Like, I wouldn't get that as a job, but I'm really good. And so they had asked me to do a figure for them, and I did it and I showed it to them, and my whole team was just floored, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. That I've never seen something like that. It was just so well done. And I taught people how to use PowerPoint in a different way. It was really cool. It was really motivating. Totally worth it. My that year experience was really eye opening. It was fun. Formed a lot of friendships. I got to work with, and I still work with some people from that job, and those people made me better. And I really appreciate all of them for what they did. My boss at the time, because she's with me now but she's not technically my boss the same way, she was very generous to me and supported me during my birth of my son, so that was really appreciated. And just in general, just understanding the circumstances I was in, because I had to call her and tell her that my mom passed away and I couldn't start my job. My mom passed away, I think, on a Friday, and or something like that. And I was starting my job on that Monday. So it was like, what do I do? So the funeral, I think, was that Monday or Tuesday, so I couldn't go. And she gave me an extra like week or two to kind of just be mentally ready. But I only just took 1 week off because I needed to work. Anybody who's ever lost someone knows that one of the coping mechanisms is just to keep your mind busy. And that's what I do. I honestly, the reason why I run like the Energizer Bunny and why I talk the way I am and why I always play games and read books and just keep busy, it's because if I take a moment to breathe, it hurts. My mind runs into all the terrible places that I don't want to be, all the terrible thoughts that I've experienced, and all the suffering that I've had. And it starts opening of like, Dr. Nobody, your situation is really hard. How are you managing this? Like, this doubt that starts to grow. And I'm sure people experience that without even having a loss of someone, but it's hard. It is a very hard experience. Eventually, at that job, I did get bored. So, all that to say is that I did get bored, it got stale, and I had to move on. One, financially, I had to. It was really getting tight with having the two kids, teenagers who are like hungry, hungry hippos. And if you don't know that reference, you're probably too young, but that's okay because I want you to listen to this podcast anyway because it's for you. But if you do understand a reference, thank you. I appreciate that support. But anyway, I had to join another job and I did. I left with my partner. We joined a larger agency and my nightmares came back. It was the worst career decision I have made thus far. And I hope I never do one again. At this new place, they have been known to pay people an absorbent amount of money to come work for them because they're just so badly managed. There was just so many issues that within the no, let me see. I think within the first 2 months, I knew I needed to get out. I knew I couldn't be there anymore. I had to leave, but I just left and I was scared to leave. Also, I'm leaving during COVID. COVID had hit just recently. It hit in March and I left, I think around May or something. So I was like, I need to get out. Within the second week of working there was just so many signals that were just red flags, like really bad comments from my bosses. People just didn't know what they were doing. People openly just talking about just terrible things and just misogynistic comments. I was like, how are people still working here? I went to that place because I was promised a better career to support my career for growth because there were so many opportunities at this place. It was because it was bigger, more international work, and to work with my partner that I got to work with like really close. I was bamboozled to the 100,000 percentile, whatever it is that you use as terminology. I did not get any mentorship. I got no opportunity except for one, which I'll talk about in a second. And I didn't get to work with my partner because the one medical person who was supposed to come off that project didn't want to come off that project. They gave him the project and then kicked me off the project, put me on a different drug, and left her in that situation with him. And I was very upset because we were hired together and we were hired as partners and they broke us up. And I was very upset. She was upset too, obviously. And then I had a new person that I ended up working with. And this guy, I have no idea how he has a job. I don't know how anybody would ever hire this type of person, but I would complain about him and I just was like, he would not work. I joined a brand with him and the first week he just disappeared. And I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. And they kept messaging me, emailing me. I'm like, guys, I don't know anything. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. We got to ask this guy what's up. Eventually he came back. He was like, hey, what's up? Like, I'm like, dude, you can't do that to me. I'm just training. His work ethic was atrocious. The worst I've ever met in anyone. And he was going to get fired, moments of getting fired. And I think he knew it. And not saying, this was on purpose, but he said that he was taking a paternity leave, and which was fine, but it was for 3 months. Also, he was taking his vacation ahead, so it was technically like 5 months. And I just started, so I had no training experience. I had no anything about the brand. This was trial by fire. So if anything I learned in this place is trial by fire. And so I did it and I did what I had to do. The only reason why I stayed so long I did at this place was because my new partner who I formed was an amazing person. She was such an intelligent woman. She worked so hard. She dealt with so much issues, but she always overcame, and she just taught me things that I still use to this day. Like, I just so appreciated her mentorship, indirect mentorship, because she didn't even know she was mentoring me half the time, but she was just a great person. Uh, and that one opportunity that I mentioned, so they got a pitch for COVID vaccine. And obviously, my expertise came in hand. Nobody in the entire departments had infectious disease experience. So, I was like, bring me in. This is me. And so, my expertise, I think, substantially helped us win the pitch. That was months and months of hard work. So we pitched for the vaccine, we won it. It was such a great victory. I didn't cry, but I teared up because it was just such a surreal moment. It was one of my first pitches. It was very hard, like I said, but it was great. But then after winning the pitch, I got to meet the clients. They were great people, really funny. But they hired another person. And what I didn't know is that this person would end up being worse than my boss at Rutgers. She was, I don't honestly, I can't think of the word right now, but she was the opposite of a misogynist. She was so rude to me and so disrespectful. The things that she would say to me, if it was out in the open, if anyone would hear it, one, she would probably be canceled, whatever they do nowadays, or she would have been to HR multiple times. I mean, she told me something so extremely personal about herself in the first couple days of knowing her. I just did not know how to react. It was just so way beyond anything that any person has ever told me. And I was told when I called my boss and was like, "Is this person replacing me?" He's like, "No, no, she's just helping you," and she replaced me. She single handedly forced me out of the brand. I ended up not working on it at all. And one day I did ask her, like, "Hey, I'm part of this. I know this. I know the clients." And she told me, and I'm quoting, I'm gonna watch the language because I don't want to curse, but she told me, "You do the beep work while I do the real work." So I had to do the grunt work while she got to actually get the praise and the rewards and actually good stuff to work on. And I was like, "Are you serious?" I remember that day because I never had anyone's directly speak to me that way. And I honestly didn't know how to respond. So I just smiled and I was like, "Okay." And from then on, I knew I needed to get out of there ASAP. Um, so it was really hard to work with her. A couple weeks before I left, we had a review period where they didn't know I was leaving yet, but they reviewed me, and she was just like, mind you, she had only been there for 2 months, so I had been there at that point like I think 7 months. So she goes, "Hey, so everybody really likes you. You work really hard, blah blah blah. They say you've improved so much since I've been here. You're such a strong medical person. You're the best we've ever seen, blah blah blah." And then she's praising me and praising herself, and then she stops and pauses and stares at me on the camera. And I'm like, "What is going on?" And she turns her head back and forth. You know why she paused? Because I didn't say thank you to her for doing that, for doing nothing. She didn't do anything. She only been there for a couple months. She wanted me to thank her for helping me become who I was when I had already all the experience because I had the trial by fire and my other experience. I was like, "You know what? I'm leaving." So I was like, "Thank you so much for helping me." I think the following week I announced that I was leaving, and my other boss, the very first thing he said to me After I told him that I was leaving, he turned to me finally, because he never looked at me on camera. Either he was always on a different screen typing something else. He never respected my time. He missed meetings constantly with me, especially ones that were especially important for me for my career. And he turned to me and he goes, "How much do you want? How much do you want to stay?" I was like, nothing, no number will keep me here. And I told him, I told him how it was and what I experienced, and I was out. It was incredibly rude, but I was out. What happened was, a month before this whole thing happened, I had a colleague from my first agency call me about an opportunity at a new place where I am currently now. And she just told me it's an exploratory call, and I got to speak with my boss now. And also they spiced it up and told me I work on a different vaccine there. They needed my expertise. My boss, who I have now, is will be on this podcast, and I know he is listening, so I won't talk too bad about him. I'm just playing. No, this he's amazing. He's a really good boss. He has been very supportive, and it's again a breath of fresh air to be so supported by and mentored by. And I'm really blessed to have him and have the people around me. And now that I have my other boss, my old boss, not the one from my previous agency, but the one from a couple years back working with me, it's been great. Anyway, so yes, I'm at a great place now. I ended up leaving. I'm working on things that I love to do. I'm working with people I really enjoy working with. So this place is what truly peace feels like. I can do what I want. I can do what I need to do. I can grow. I have insanely great opportunities here. I can give my ideas without recourse. I can ask for more work and not be judged. And I just have great colleagues. It's amazing. And obviously, I'm not advocating for the place I'm working at. You can definitely find me on LinkedIn and look at the place, but I'm just happy. Everything I've experienced, it's led to this now, and I'm at a good place. It's a sigh of relief, and I'm happy. That's all I can say. I could just keep repeating that. And no, there's no next part where I say, and then something happened. No, this is it. This is the end. Well, for now, this is where I am, where I'm in my career. I went from an associate medical director to a medical director in an extremely fast pace. I've worked hard and I earned it. And I'm just really happy where I am with my career. Everybody, just sigh relief with me. We made it. You've listened to both my life and my career, and now you understand why I needed to tell my story. Yes, there's still stories to be told and in more detail, which I promise you they will be done. And some are good, some are bad, but it's my side of the story, okay? Always keep that in mind. Eventually, I will talk to people with greater details of the stories that I've been telling you. It's my side of the story. Eventually, I will talk more about them and in greater details. There has always been people alongside of me that helped me and supported me, were always there for me and just knew what needed to be done for me. And I appreciate those people. And you have to find those people as well. They may they may be silent helpers, or maybe just not as a parent, but it's always good to find these type of people. And we're going to have a mentorship episode and how important that is. But with one caveat, never expect anyone to do anything for you. I learned it so many times, and I think I've proven it to you that you need to do your own thing. Okay. Be productive, be proactive with what you do, because no one's going to do it for you. Like, it's like saying, I want to get married, but you put no effort into it. Like, you don't talk to whoever you want to get married with, like to find a person for your life. That you got to do so. You got to like download Bumble or something, or go out to a cafe or whatever it is that people do nowadays. But you just need to be proactive in your life. You can't just expect everything to land on your lap. No matter what you do, you got to do what you got to do. just do it. Nike it. Be proactive. Don't stay in places that don't deserve you. Don't look at it for you because they don't care about you. To be honest, I've even my pastor has said this, and people have said this to me many times. There's people that say, if you die, I think was it Elon Musk or Bezos or one of those famous people, just like, if you die, your family will suffer. There'll be so much remorse for you, but that job will put a new job posting the next day for you. Just always keep that in mind. So don't work crazy. Do what you got to do. Be happy, work hard, but just remember, just be happy what you do. Don't be content. But most importantly, please don't leave your job if you don't have another job lined up. That's really tough unless you have a baby mama or daddy or your parents that can totally support you, which I think is still not right. Just don't leave under any circumstance. Just find a job. It'll come in time. Just be patient. Take advantage of any opportunities that are available for you. You got to find them. Just Google it. There's so many out there, so many more now than ever was when throughout my whole life. Get those hookups, reach out to people, like people on LinkedIn, people in Facebook or your groups or your church or whatever it is. Just get help. Just talk about it. You never know who can hook you up. I can't begin to tell you how important connections are, and I might do a little blog post about it just to talk about it. But everyone, I hope you gained insights from this episode, from both my episodes, both parts, and are excited to find your own passions. This is the beginning of becoming a someone, but specifically the someone you always wanted to be. In the next episode, we're going to have a couple of our guests come on to talk about their life, about their journeys and delayed gratification. So I would seriously tune in because I think they're more super motivational, just to hear how they ended up with their lives. But as always, please do give me a like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It's really appreciated. It really helps me a lot. You have no idea. You can also visit my website, thedrnobodypodcast.com, to learn more about my guests, about my episodes, to listen to the episodes again, share the episode, and much, much more. Thanks again for listening to the Dr. Nobody podcast, where we turn nobodies to somebodies. Talk to you all very soon.